I'm Melisa Idris, and you're watching The Future is Female, the show where we find the extraordinary in every woman. Today on the show, I have with me Datuk Halimah Mohd Said, who is with the Association of Voices of Peace, Conscience and Reason, better known as PCORE. Welcome to the show. It's lovely to have you here.
Nice to be here, Melisa.
So, Voices of Peace, Conscience and Reason, I feel that now more than ever we need a bit of a reminder that everyone needs a little bit more of a conscience and a bit of peace and reason in their heads before they, open their mouths. So it's wonderful to have you here. I kind of want to talk a bit about PCORE first and foremost. So tell me a little bit about how you came to be involved in PCORE.
Right. It was after the 2008 elections when the voices of dissension were starting to sound very loudly. And 5 of us on Facebook, it started on Facebook actually.
Five people.
5 Facebook friends decided that we need a counter voice. We need a voice of peace, a voice that speaks with conscience and with reason to counter all these voices of dissension that were becoming louder and louder. So that was when we started, Melisa. So we actually formed this group in 2010, and we had an inaugural forum where we, invited, civil society organizations and spokespersons and so on, and we actually launched the whole concept of peace, conscience, and reason.
Right.
Yep.
So it's been close to 9, almost 10 years now that you've been working on this. Talk to me a little bit about some of the work that you do on the ground. So you have a vision of promoting, reason, peace, reason, and conscience and reason. But how do you translate that to work on the ground? Right.
We started off by promoting discourse, conversations like you're having now, but not one-to-one. It was more, conferences, forums, bigger groups, to promote the 10 areas of concern that we identified for ourselves. Okay. We have this big objective of promoting discourse of peace, discourse of reason, and so on. But along with that, we identified 10 areas of concern, which span the whole gamut of issues in society, like national integration, unity, integrity, anti-corruption, raising the status of the underprivileged, synergy between school and parents and the family. So we have all this, and then my favorite one is actually, sustaining cultural and natural, what is that?
Heritage?
Heritage, yes.
Okay, yes, because that's important,
my
right?
favorite one, yeah.
Through that is where we learn about each other and be proud of where we came from and who we are.
Exactly.
So we'll touch on that a little bit more. But as you mentioned, coming on to 10 years now working with PCORE, how would you gauge its effectiveness in its communication and message?
Right. I think the one gauge that is quite apparent is that doors are opening to us. Many more people, groups want to work with us, collaborate with us. So apart from the fact that we get responses from people on the ground who attend our conferences and our workshops, we also get other civil society organizations who want to work with us. So in that sense, our outreach has grown, all right? And PCORE recently, not so recently, 3 years ago, became part of a bigger civil society movement called Dialogue Rakyat, where the focus is, precisely on national cohesion and unity. Okay. And we plan to, or we have this big, ambition of promoting a movement, across a national movement across different levels of the community. Okay. Schools, universities, residents associations, and so on. So
working with different types of communities.
Yes.
All right. If I could get you, Halimah, to zoom out for a bit now. You work, clearly you do work on the ground, with communities, so you have that one-on-one interaction. But zooming out into the state of Malaysia right now, I don't know about you, but I feel in recent weeks, perhaps even in recent months, that there seems to be a heightened sense of tension amongst Malaysians, and this coming with Merdeka just around the corner. So I'd like to get your sense of where you see the state of the nation is currently. What's your read on the temperature of society right now?
Yes, the temperature is quite high because we are divided over many issues, some very simple ones like CAT, which should not have been an issue at all, but has been made out to be an issue. And of course, Zakir Naik and his Dakwah movement that has inspired a whole extremist kind of Islam, supporters among the extremists in extremist Muslims. So that has become an issue with other groups, with other communities who see this as a threat to their own standing. So although, Melissa, I do not actually believe that we have been free from racial altercations.
I mean, it's part of our history,
yeah.
right? Yes.
When we were growing up, we were like throwing names at one another, right? The communities were calling each other names, but it didn't break out into big arguments or violence, because I think it was kept very much under control by the goodwill that we felt for one another.
So what do you think has changed? Why have we become...
The goodwill has become ill will, I think.
And what has been the shift for that?
I think it's the fear of being threatened by the culture of the other, the fear of losing your rights because some other people are threatening to wrest it from you. So this fear, this this feeling that your position is insecure, the power base that you have, the little power base that you have is being wrest from under your feet. So that fear, I think, is making people go berserk. Whenever there is a little spark, they overreact.
Correct. It's a tinderbox waiting for a spark. And to be completely honest with you, I don't think we're the only ones, the only country dealing with this. It's really, a phenomenon that we see around the world. But I guess I'm asking you, as someone who champions, having a voice of reason, peace and conscience and reason, what can we do at a human being, at an individual level, to address that fear?
Yes, I think we can do a lot at the community level. We belong to different communities and we have different identities in each community. I stress on that point quite a bit. We don't just have one identity, and I think we should not be so naive as to think that we can just uphold this one identity. Why don't we accept the fact that we can have diverse identities which we enact in different contexts, I'm a Malay in one, context, in one situation. I'm a Malaysian in another situation. I'm a Negri, person in the Negeri Sembilan context
kind of
and so on.
Celebrating the differences in identity, because that's important, right?
That's important.
By acknowledging that we have different identities, we learn to embrace each other's and be proud of who we are, right? There's more than, there's enough room for everybody's identities in a community.
I think so. It's just that when it comes to regional, especially regional, now Sabah and Sarawak are fearing for their identities. But I think it can be nicely resolved if people feel that their rights are not being threatened. It has to do with rights, Identity has to do with rights. Because for each identity you would enjoy certain rights. So if there is a threat on your identity, you feel that your rights are being taken from you. So I think, at the community level, you can do a lot by bringing people together, at events like, of course, open house and so on, which I was very skeptical of a long time ago. But now I think we need these kind of, get-togethers.
Right.
Through the get-togethers and through regular meetings with one another, you see each other, you like each other face to face.
Why were you skeptical of open houses
because
before?
I thought, I'm like shy to say that I thought they encourage gluttony.
Sometimes I agree with you. Sometimes it can show the worst nature, the worst parts of somebody's.
And greed, because people pack up to tapao food that is laid out for them.
You're talking about kind of
national open houses.
Open houses. Yep. So now you see it as perhaps an avenue for people to kind of come together and, you know, bond over food.
Definitely.
Even though that there is an argument to be made that perhaps, you know, these types of unity efforts seem contrived, that they don't really foster real integration.
What is real integration?
I don't know. Tell me.
So I think integration occurs at the tangible level, superficial level, face to face, and then through gradual absorption of these values, we feel it in our hearts. We feel nationalistic, we feel patriotic because we are with our comrades at arms, and I think it grows on you. The more you see one another, the more you trust one another, all right, because you're sharing common ground, you're sharing activities and food that you like. You know, the unity walks and so on, they're necessary. They're necessary.
Okay, so all the things that you've just described, Halimah, I want to kind of get your thoughts on whether that can be cultivated. Is that something that can be fostered, especially through policy? We're going to get your thoughts on the role of government in fostering national unity right here on The Future is Female. Stay with us. We will be back in just a couple of minutes. Hi, I'm Melisa Idris. Welcome back to The Future is Female. I have with me on the show today Datuk Halimah Mohd Said, who's with PCORE, the Association of Voices of Peace, Conscience and Reason. We could all use a little bit of that today. And just before the break, we were talking about national unity and social integration. And these are kind of abstract terms that the government uses. As you've spoken before, Halimah, about how these are ideals, that we should always strive for them, but whether we can achieve them is another matter. What are your thoughts on the role of the government in creating a more harmonious and inclusive Malaysia?
I think they have done quite a bit, especially for schools. They have this project called RIMUP, which stands for Rancangan Integrasi Murid untuk Perpaduan, which was launched in 2008, and it's been going on since then. And this is specifically, conducting activities to encourage integration between schools, the sekolah menengah, sekolah kebangsaan, sekolah jenis kebangsaan Cina, sekolah jenis kebangsaan Tamil. So there are programs that bring the three strands of schools together.
Right. So why do you think it's important to start at the education level? I mean, it seems to me that a lot of this kind of national unity, inclusive Malaysia has to begin in schools, but that just feels instinctive. Is there a basis for this, policies to begin at school level?
Definitely, because it's part of education, the inculcation of values, including patriotism and nationalism and so on, can start from any time, and why not in schools? But I also think that the whole concept of RIMUP, the whole thing behind RIMUP is to also inject social values, right? Like respect for one another, admiring or rather appreciating each other's cultures, religions, and so on. So all these values have to be inculcated from young,
right.
And the school seems to be a good avenue to do this because teachers are there and so on. But I believe that parents have to work together with the schools, because although the schools may be imbibing all these values in school, during school hours. When children go home, they are facing another set of values, home values, family values, which may not always be in support of these national values.
So how do we do that? How do we take it out of textbooks and the classrooms and make sure that, as a child, because that's the formative years, that's where you learn all these behaviors. I mean, racism and bigotry and prejudice, that's all learnt behaviors. How do we make sure that children are learning the good behaviors and unlearning these bad behaviors?
One of the ways is actually to mobilize parents in this, because I think parents come from different backgrounds, right? Rural,
and we want to break the cycle, even if parents are uneducated or ill-equipped to understand this,
And a lot of disruptive values come from certain levels of society, right? So by mobilizing parents through the PIBGs, the Persatuan Ibu Bapa dan Guru-Guru, you can actually get the parents involved in the school activities, especially co-curricular activities. Maybe not the academic activities, but co-curricular activities. And this is one thing that PCORE is involved in with this Harmony Mesra Saling Hormati movement.
So harmony, goodwill, mutual respect, and this is part of your work with different communities. If I'm not mistaken, the idea is to promote this through arts and culture.
Yes, for schools.
For schools, so tell us more about that.
Yes. So, we've already launched it with MOE. We're collaborating with the Ministry of Education, and that's a good thing. They're so forthcoming. Although some people say that the ministry is a bit of a, lackadaisical about such things, we have found them to be most forthcoming.
Oh, your experience has been positive? Yes,
has been very positive. So we've already launched it. We've seen groups of, they call them PPD, the Pegawai Pelajaran Daerah. We've had a workshop with the PPDs, and then we had a workshop recently with Guru Besar, Pengetua, and the PIBG heads. So we have briefed them on what we expect of them. And one of the co-curricular activities is art, right? And of course music and dance and drama. So we're going to really build up this co-curricular activities that involve teachers, parents, and the students.
Pull everyone in.
Everyone in.
So you need a concerted effort.
A concerted effort, supported by the ministry, supported by the government. Only then will anything come out of it.
Do you think that you will get the support and the buy-in?
I believe so, because I've started without waiting for anyone. I took the initiative, and I'm organizing an inter-school art competition. It's already gone out to the schools and to the, pejabat daerah, pejabat negeri Selangor and Wilayah. We're focusing on Selangor and Wilayah Persekutuan.
So starting central and
both government schools and private schools. And it's going to be a massive competition, which is going to be launched in November, hopefully by the Prime Minister. I've sent a letter of invitation to Yang Amat Berhormat, so I hope Yang Amat Berhormat will respond favorably.
Well, if he says that social unity, national unity is the top of his agenda, then
he would support this
Support
movement.
this. Okay.
Yes.
Right. Now, coming back to that, you said something a little bit earlier that resonated with me. You said part of PCORE's mission or vision is to enable people to have conversations, discourse about difficult topics. And I read something that said, ultimately, social cohesion is not something that can be commanded by any government. It is something that can only grow from dialogue, from give and take, from speaking and from listening. So how do we start to have those difficult conversations, Halimah, especially in this day and age? You said PCORE started from social media, but I'm on social media and it's a toxic place. The toxicity has increased lately. So how do we start to have that conversation? I mean, what advice would you give to people like me and those out there listening when we're confronted with toxicity and fear? How do we start to have difficult conversations with each other?
We started off by having big conversations in big groups. Conferences, forums, and and workshops. But lately, in the last couple of years, we've decided to go small. So we have round table dialogues, you know, where we have about 50 people, all right, and the 50 people will be divided into smaller round tables, 10 in each, and when they are in a smaller group, the intimidation, they don't feel so intimidated.
Okay.
They will actually express their views.
Okay.
So I think the face-to-face element is so important. Social media is not the right place because people can baling batu and sorok tangan, all right, and they can be anonymous, they can change their identity, so it has to be face-to-face.
Yeah.
Smaller groups, picnics, all right, I love picnics. Let's go in Bakela and have a nice chat. All right, let's share our little bakal, the food we eat and so on.
That is really true. People are very difficult to hate when they're up close. So, you know, bring them in and then face to face, it's a lot easier. I think that's probably why we're seeing a lot of negativity and toxicity on social media.
Although it would take longer, it will take forever to get everybody in. But if each of us at our level decides to have a neighborhood tea party, just get 10 neighbors to come and have a chat.
And this is where I think the role of women is particularly interesting because, you know, this is where women can actually help to ensure the establishment of integrity and equality amongst communities. You know, as you mentioned, it's not just in the classroom. Sometimes when you come home, the children need to be imbibed with this kind of goodwill to other communities. So that, well, what do you think about the role?
I'm a great champion of women, as you know, Melissa, and I believe that women have better integrity than men because they are the role.
We're going to get a lot of men
will dispute me and so on. Will you know, throw brickbats at me and so on. But it's because we are the role models at home. We bring up children, we nurture the values in them, we chide them when they go astray, we chide our husbands even. So it seems as though we're guardians of value, the value system. Right. Whether it's family values or community values or regional values, women seem to have a hold over these values and they can play a bigger role in imparting them and protecting them and getting it disebarkan pada orang ramai. Yeah. So I think women, please mobilize the women in this country to do this to do their bit. They are such you know, a forgotten lot. Right, unsung heroes, and there's so many wonderful women out there, Melissa, doing little bits of work, and they are unrecognized. They don't ask for recognition. You know, so it's high time we lift them up to a level where they are heard, at least heard and appreciated.
Yes, there are so many women that are, I guess, not recognized for the good work that they're doing. In the couple minutes that we have left, I thought I wanted to get your thoughts on, you know, Merdeka being so close, just around the corner. What you hope, if you're optimistic, you know, first and foremost, if you're optimistic that we are heading to a better, to better days and not to a downward spiral, and what your hope is for the country.
I'm very optimistic. Someone asked me once, you know, your articles are always full of hope. I said, yes, I'm hopeful.
How do you keep from being, you know, pessimistic? Because,
you know, I'm into my 70th year already of life, and I've seen this as a process. It wasn't that wonderful before. People rave about the good old days. No, it wasn't that wonderful. We had altercations, but we dealt with it because we were able to speak to each other, you know, at the same level.
So you're optimistic for
Very optimistic.
And what is your hope for?
My hope is that Malaysians, you know, will appreciate one another's identity. Do not quarrel over the multiple identities that we hold. You know, we can be rest assured that nobody's going to threaten you if you work on it in a very peaceable manner. Don't be aggressive and expect people to calm down. You know, if you offer the olive branch, I think people will be all out to, you know, receive it from you. Receive it graciously and with honor.
Yeah, just to kind of calm down. Everyone just calm down and then talk to each other.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so
Melisa.
much for being on the show. It's been such a pleasure to have you here.
I've enjoyed it.
You've been watching The Future is Female. I'll be back same time next week with other extraordinary women on the show. Make sure you catch me then. I'll see you. Thank you so much.